Hello there, Nate here with the Volunteer Tech Vlog on the Live Sound 101 YouTube channel. And this is going to be a media report video for Sunday, June 25th, 2017. We were down to one service. Usually we do two throughout the school year. And then in the summertime we dropped down to one big service with the overflow section opened up. Okay, where to start here? So problem with tuning. Okay, so I'm just going to read through some notes that I made here and observations. So right now we've got the system set up so that the Yamaha TF5 is basically compensating for some room EQ, whereas before we did some EQ adjustments in like an external DBX drive rack. We still have the drive rack, but so far in our initial deployment of the TF5, we decided to do all the time adjustments. So the crossover of the sub to the main and the time alignment of the sub to the main, we decided to handle with the DBX drive rack. All other EQ changes for now are handled on the TF5. So we've got some kind of like master EQ on the main mix where we're compensating for the room, right? And so one of the everything is a pro and con, right? There's no like right or wrong way necessarily to do things. There's either the right or wrong way for you to kind of think about things. There's no, what am I trying to say here? There's reasons to do things different ways, and there's no globally accepted, here's the best way you should do EQ in your system. I don't think there's just one way that works across the board. So for now, we've handled kind of global room EQ adjustments on the main mix of the TF5. And I'm going to point out one of the flaws in doing that. So one of the flaws in doing that is when you're setting up, when you're soloing different mixes. So you're switching between main mix. So in the Yamaha TF5, to solo something, it's called Q, C-U-E. So a Q mix or a solo mix, depending on what mixer you're looking at. So when you switch between mixes, if I want to listen to the main mix, front of house mix, switch over to the overflow mix, switch to the broadcast mix, switch to a wireless in-ear fix, which is mix, which is actually feeding in the nursery right now. If I want to do that and switch between them, basically it sounds crisp and clear in every single mix, except for front of house. It sounds like it's underwater. There's a huge roll off in the low end because we're doing some room EQ there, and we're rolling off the low end at around 2,000 to 4,000 hertz because we have a very bright main overhead, which is accentuating the highs a lot, and it's piercing actually to your ears. So just something to be aware of if you want a consistent headphone mix when you're switching between mixes. Doing the room EQ on the front of house may not be the best option. I don't know if I fully explain that, if that makes sense, but the end result is the way we have it set up now, when you switch between all these different mixes that we're doing, in your headphones, the main mix sounds like you're underwater. It sounds like essentially a lot of the high end is just cut out of it because there's a room compensation happening. Or really, I don't even think I'm calling it a room compensation. It's not necessarily an acoustic compensation. It's just a compensation for our amplifier speaker pairing. So we've got speakers that we need to compensate for in terms of EQ. Are a little bit too bright right off the bat. So we need something to think about, something for Josh and I to kind of wrestle with and go back and forth with to come up with a solution. And maybe we decide, well, it's okay if the front of house mix sounds like it's underwater in relation to the other mix, if some of that brightness is gone. But maybe we don't want to do that. Something to think about. Got to weigh the pros and cons. So DB SPL A-weighted slow. During rehearsal, we hit around 90 dB. I think that was when the guitar player, when EJ was warming up his amplifier, just getting some sounds through it. Peaked pretty loud there, and around 90 dB is the max. And then during the actual service, we hit like 89 dB SPL, A-weighted slow, as measured from the back of the room. So that was kind of the range we were in, or that was at least the max there. Chicken wing photo in Spotify. So this is something a a little, so I go up to, so we've got a shared Spotify account, and I go into our Spotify account and I see there's a goofy picture of me eating chicken wings. And I think someone was playing a little prank on me, so I gotta think of some creative way to get back at this person. I think I know who it is. But looking for ideas. If you've got ideas for good office pranks, let me know. And, you know, I might wait 4 or 5 months until people have forgotten about the potential for me getting back in some sort of prank form, and then I'll strike when they least expect it. That's how I do pranks. So I'll think of something good. So if you've got ideas for harmless office pranks, let me know. I'm open to all suggestions. Any and all suggestions welcome. So I'll put a little picture of that Spotify photo that was loaded into the playlist artwork there, featuring me eating chicken, so you guys know what I'm talking about. Scene recall, so workflow. I was going to make a little note about kind of how we handle the workflow of scene recall, scene store, and how we kind of handle most of the legwork in kind of our A scenes, and then we customize in the B scenes. I don't know if other people use scenes that way. You can set up to use scenes per song, so that like scene A would be song 1, scene B would be song 2, you know, and so forth. But we don't really use scenes quite that. We use it more like in terms of like arrangement or ensemble. Like we've got one look with the drums, the guitar, and a bass, another look with maybe just acoustic and drums, one look with acoustic and, you know, a couple vocals. Like, so we've got different kind of looks and according to different ensembles. But basically our workflow is we recall one of those 6 A through F hard button A scenes, and those are saved according to the main ensembles or bands that we have in here. So like band A would be like kind of like a standard template where you can start from. B would be Pete's band, C would be Kent's band, F would be if there's an event going on in the fellowship hall, you push that and everything just kind of lines up. So the A scenes handle kind of like most of like the labeling of what goes where and what gets plugged in where. Like I'd say like 80% of everything is kind of handled in the A scenes. But then when you want to really customize and dial in a scene or a mix for Sunday morning, you save it as a B scene, and you save it with the worship pastor's initial _ year _ month and day, and then the person who mixes initials at the end. So you get something like PH space 170625 space NS, and the NS would be my initials, and the PH at the front would be the worship leader. So you kind of, those are the B scenes. So you come in on a Thursday night, you start with one of the 6, you recall it, and then you store that as a B scene after you've done all your customization for that specific week. And then you come in Sunday morning, recall that specific scene, and you're up and running. That's kind of the workflow we've been getting in, and I think I like it. I think it works pretty well. I know there are many different types of workflows. Many people use the TF5, I would assume, in many different ways, depending on what your needs are. But this seems to be a good workflow for us. But maybe there's still things we need to learn. So if you have any ideas, always open to suggestions. The next thing, we added a harmonica last minute. And if you shut down the TF5 while it's still recording, the recording is not saved. So I think that pretty much covers the gist of this report. I'm gonna drive at this point and maybe hash out a few of those last points. So the harmonica swap. So we did a little swap-a-rooney here, like last minute. There was basically one song where we didn't have drums. We didn't need drums, and the drummer happens to play harmonica. So, kind of about 5 minutes before the service started, maybe 10 minutes before the service started, Eric said, yo, I'm just going to jump on this backup vocal mic. So we had 2 backup vocals. We had Liv and M doing backup vocals. And so I had their vocals all set up and ready to go. And then Eric on this just one song in particular. So ideally, I would have liked to set up an extra microphone just for harmonica and get that dialed in appropriately. But because we were short notice he just jumped on Liv's mic, and then Liv and M just shared a mic for that song. Which, having two vocalists share a mic, I mean, it kind of works and it kind of doesn't, because what usually ends up happening is for the vocalist to be kind of at a comfortable distance in terms of their personal bubble, if you will. In order to really share a mic, you have to be like you have to be pretty much kissing proximity, and it's not comfortable to do that. So what ends up happening is people get kind of as close as possible in their comfort zone, and what ends up happening is they each stand at a comfortable distance away from a social norm perspective, and the end result is neither are really close enough to the mic to be picked up effectively without trying to boost. Just with an SM58, it becomes challenging to pick them up without getting feedback, because the tendency is to crank up the gain, crank up the fader to hear both vocalists, and then you really get in danger of feeding back because they're at this far distance away. I mean, so it wasn't ideal, but it was kind of a last minute thing where it just kind of made sense to do it that way rather than grab another microphone and patch it in and dial it all up and everything. I mean, I would have done that if I had a little bit more notice, but this was less than 10 minutes before the service. And so that's the way it went. And that's okay. Harmonica sounded good. Vocals couldn't really hear all that much. But that's just kind of how it goes. So, no big deal. You just kind of roll with the punches and do what you got to do. What was the last thing I wanted to talk about? The harmonica. Oh, the TF5. So this is an important thing to know I know there's a lot of people out there that watch these videos that are interested in the TF5 and they have questions about it, and they're thinking, is the Yamaha TF5 something we should think about? And people are trying to figure out if it's the right board for them, and so they want to ask a bunch of questions. So I've seen some good questions come through recently about the Yamaha, and this is an important one to know just from an operational standpoint. Yamaha has a USB record port, essentially. So you plug in, we've got this little USB stick that we plug in right at the top of the console. If you're looking at the navigation panel up front, where it's a touch screen where you can navigate through all the menus and preferences and settings, just to the left of that there's a USB port, and you can record directly to that USB port, just a stereo recording, and it's great. It's super convenient. So on any Sunday we'll record to that, just like a live to 2, and then we'll also record a multi-track through another USB port that connects to a DAW, digital audio workstation, where we run Nuendo live, and we multi-track through there. So we're doing kind of 2 recordings at the same time, and we're actually no longer even using our we had a purpose-built Tascam digital recorder, a solid-state recorder that we've now moved out of the system to our portable system, so we have the ability to record 2-channel portable. But anyway, the caveat, flipping back over to that built-in USB port that's at the top of the console where you can record to stereo right in the TF5, awesome feature, love it, it's great. One thing to know about it is if you forget to stop the recording, this is the meat of what I'm trying to say here. So if you forget to stop the recording and you just power off the console, the recording will not be saved. I wouldn't expect it to be saved, but it's, you're turning the thing off before the recording has had a chance to, finalize and end the file, essentially. So it would kind of make sense. But it's important to know, because there is technology out there that will auto save as it records per every 5-minute mark. But the software, usually that's like a software feature where if you're doing a lot of heavy recording and something crazy happens and you're 3 hours into a recording and you lose power for a second and then it comes back on, you lose the whole recording. And That's something to be aware of. A lot of digital technology that's lower end is susceptible to this. If the device is shut off prematurely before that recording ends, the recording will be lost. And it's one of those things where you hear people talk about which is better, analog or digital. And this is one of those rare instances where if you're recording to like analog tape, for example, and you lose power, you still got the whole recording up until where you lost power, because that electronic energy was transferred through magnets to that tape, and it's going to be there as long as that tape was spinning and the record head was engaged and things were being recorded. You've got that physical tape. But if you're in the digital world, there's no guarantee that that recording is going to be there. And this is a good example. So the TF5, very, very feature-rich, powerful console I recommend. But if you've got a recording in progress and you go to shut down the board, that recording will be lost. So we found that out last week. So this is kind of a lessons learned thing there. So it's one of those things where we can just put it on a little checklist for the media volunteer to just remember to, before you shut down, before you push the big off button on the power sequencer, make sure the recording has been stopped, and then everything will be happy. So little lessons learned, little note there for anybody who's looking at the TF5 and just operationally wants to make sure everything's working properly. But of course, that's why I like to record to two places at once. We record to that, live to 2 right to the board, and we also multi-track it out to over USB to the digital audio workstation PC. So nice to have a little bit of redundancy built in there. And that'll about do it for this media report. My name is Nate. This is the Volunteer Tech Vlog on the Live Sound 101 YouTube channel. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for watching, commenting. I will see you in the next video.